Okay, welcome in one and all. I'm now going to review uh, day or slash night two of the NFL. Oh my gosh, the NHL season, and I'll go through what teams I picked and basically the scoring summary for each game that was played. So the Montreal Canadiens took on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, two original six franchises. And it's very common, more often than not, for them to either A, meet at the beginning of the season or B, meet at the end of the season. I don't know if it's a ritual, but I'm a fan of it. And in all reality, if they could just have a day dedicated to like the six original teams playing, that would be phenomenal. But I'm not going to get my hopes up. So, like I said, they did play each other on the first night of the NHL season. I did predict Toronto would win, but it was a roller coaster of a ride to say the least. So Jake Evans got things started in the first with his first goal of the season, unassisted. Alex Newhook got his first goal as a Montreal Canadian since being acquired by the Colorado Avalanche. Yaroslav Slavkovsky and Kirby Dach both assisted on that goal. Noah Gregor would get the first goal for the Maple Leafs of the 2023 campaign. He was assisted by John Klingberg. Austin Matthews, who had a monster game, got things kicked off. He tied the game at 2, assisted by Mitch Marner and John Tavares on a power play. And then William Nylander would also cash in on a power play late in the second period, assisted by John Klingberg and John Tavares to give the Leafs a 3-2 lead heading into the third period. Speaking of power play, Montreal would get their first power play goal of the season, courtesy of Cole Caulfield, assisted by Mike Matheson and Nick Suzuki. Alex Newhook would get his second goal of the game, assisted by Arbor Xhekaj and Kirby Dach. And Jesse Ylonen would give the team a 5-3 lead in the third period, assisted by I think it's Ronald Harvey Bernard, if I'm not mistaken, Raphael Harvey Bernard. So just over halfway into the third, they had a 5-3 lead, but it would be very short lived, as just a few moments later, Austin Matthews would get his second goal of the game, assisted by John Tavares and Morgan Riley. And then with just over a minute to go, Austin Matthews, big surprise, would tie the game up at 5, assisted by William Nylander. This game would go into overtime, but no one would score in the overtime. So obviously with the NHL, if no one scores in overtime, you go to a shootout. So the first shootout of the season would take only 3 rounds, and the only person that would score would be Mitch Marner, and ultimately gave the Toronto Maple Leafs their first win of this season. So they're obviously sitting at 1-0-0, while the Montreal Canadiens are at 0 wins, 0 losses, and now 1 overtime / shootout loss. So now on to the second game. And the second game took place in Raleigh between the Ottawa Senators and the Carolina Hurricanes. So I'm going to load these teams up here, so just bear with me. There we go. So I did pick that the Carolina Hurricanes would get the victory in this one, and they sure did. A huge 5-3 victory. Matthew Joseph would start things off in the first period with his first goal of the season, assisted by Zub and I think it's Patrick Kelly, if I'm not mistaken, to make it 1-0 for the Sens. Michael Bunting, the new acquisition from from the Leafs, now acquired by the Carolina Hurricanes, got his first goal of the season, assisted by Sebastian Aho and Tony DeAngelo. That was on a power play as well. Teuvo Teravainen would give the Carolina Hurricanes a 2-1 lead, assisted by Nietzsche and Brady Shea. And then in the third period, it was just an explosion of goals. George Stahl would get his first of the season, assisted by Martinook. Parker Kelly would get his first goal, assisted by Matthew Joseph to make it 3-2. Tim Stützle would tie things up. No assists. Got his first goal of the season, and then just over 2 minutes after Stützle scored, Brady Shea would ultimately give the Carolina Hurricanes a lead, and they did not look back. And so Brady Shea scored, assisted by Fast and Jordan Stahl, and then Jacob Slavin would give the Carolina Hurricanes a 5-3 lead, assisted by Kotkaniemi and Jarvis. And that was a shorthanded goal as well. So I think they had, if I'm not mistaken, they had a power play goal and obviously an even strength goals and a shorthanded goal. So the Hurricanes scored. Didn't matter if they were down a man, up a man, or it was 5-on-5. They managed to put the puck in the back of the net. So obviously the Hurricanes are sitting at 1-0, and the Senators are sitting at 0-1-0. So moving on to our next matchup, took place in Beantown, and I will see if I can pull up the teams. Yep, so the Chicago Blackhawks played back-to-back nights, and they went into Boston to take on the Bruins. I did predict that Boston would get the victory in this one, and they did. It was a very narrow victory. The final score was 3-1. And I'll just take a look and see who scored for what teams. So in the first, Connor Bedard, it only took him 2 games in the NHL to finally get his first goal of the NHL career. He was assisted by Taylor Hall and Ryan Donato. It was an even strength goal. And then Trent Frederick would tie things up for the Bruins, getting his first goal this season, assisted by Carlo and Poitras, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. In the second period, David Pastrnak would get his first goal this season, assisted by Milan Lucic. Obviously, he came over from the Calgary Flames, and then Pastrnak would get yet another goal in the third period with just under a minute to go, assisted by Brad Marchand and Charlie McAvoy. So 3-1 is the final score. So despite the loss, Chicago is actually sitting at 1-1-0. And obviously the Bruins, that was their first game of the season. So they're now sitting at 1-0-0. So 3 more games to review. They're all Western teams. So just bear with me, and I'll see if I can pull the teams up on the screen. So the Winnipeg Jets went into Calgary to take on the Flames, and I did predict that the Jets would get the victory, but it was not meant to be. The final score 5-3. So in the first period, Andrew Mangiapane would get a power play goal from Ruzicka and Noah Hannafin. Kyle Connor would get his first goal of the season for the Jets, assisted by Sandberg and Pionk. Mackenzie Weegar would get his first goal of the season, assisted by Zadorov and William Duer, if I'm not pronouncing that name incorrectly. Alex Iafallo, obviously he was part of that big trade with the Los Angeles Kings, would get his first goal as a Jet, assisted by DeMello and Adam Lowry. Rasmus Anderson would make it 3-2 in the second period on a shorthanded goal, assisted by Elias Lindholm. In the third period, Mark Scheifele would get his first goal of the season, assisted by Josh Morrissey to tie things up at 3. Elias Lindholm would make it 4-3 in the third period. It was late. I think it was like a minute and a half late in the period, assisted by Mangiapane and Jonathan Huberdeau. And then more or less, Andrew Mangiapane put the game on ice with just about 7 seconds to go, assisted by Jonathan Huberdeau and Elias Lindholm. So like I said, 5-3 was the final score from Calgary. So the Jets are obviously sitting at 0-1-0, while the Calgary Flames are at 1-0-0. So now we're going to pull up the next team. So the Colorado Avalanche went into LA to take on the Kings. I did predict that Colorado would get the victory, and it was a big victory. 5-2 was the final score. Nathan MacKinnon would start things off in the first with his first goal of the season from Mikko Rantanen and Jonathan Drouin. Cale Makar would get his first goal in the second period from Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen on a power play. Mikko Rantanen would actually get his first goal of the season, assisted by Devin Tays and Nathan MacKinnon. Carl Grundstrom would get the first goal of the Kings season, assisted by Philippe Deneau. Quinton Byfield would get his first goal this season late in the second period, assisted by Anze Kopitar. And then in the third period, The Avs just put the game on ice. Mikko Rantanen would get a goal, assisted by Jack Johnson and Cale Makar. And Miles Wood would get his first goal as a Colorado Avalanche, assisted by Ross Colton and Thomas Tatar. Ironically, all three of those guys are new acquisitions for the Colorado Avalanche. So they're obviously sitting at 1-0-0, while the Kings are sitting at 0-1-0. And the last game of night 2 of the NHL took place in Vancouver between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks. And I did predict that Edmonton would get the victory, and I couldn't have been more wrong if I tried. 8-1. I'm not kidding you. 8-1 was the final score in this one. I was first thinking, was this still a preseason game? Did the Oilers just not show up? But holy cow, it was not pretty. Well, for the Oilers, if you're a fan of the Canucks, I'm sure you were just loving every second of it. So Connor Garland will get his first goal of the season, assisted by Elias Pettersson and Noel Juleson. And then Brock Besser, who had a monster game, got his first goal of the season, assisted by JT Miller. And, Di Giuseppe would get his first assist. Brock Besser would get his second goal of the game, assisted by Miller and Philip Hronek. And then Brock Besser would get a hat trick about 7 minutes into the second, assisted by Elias Pettersson and Kuzmenko. Leon Draisaitl would get his first goal of the season for the Oilers, assisted by McDavid and Evan Bouchard. That was a power play goal. And then Elias Pettersson would also get a power play goal of his own, assisted by Quinn Hughes and JT Miller. And then in the third period, it was just an absolute onslaught. Brock Besser would get his fourth goal of the season already in his first game, assisted by Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek. JT Miller would get his first goal of the season, assisted by Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. And Dakota Joshua would get his first goal of the season, assisted by Sam Lafferty and Noel Höglander. So a huge victory for the Vancouver Canucks. And so they're obviously sitting at 1-0-0, while the Oilers, who suffered probably one of the biggest losses in recent years, they fall to 0-1-0. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit that sub button. It'll help this channel out, and I'd be very grateful for that. And as always, take care.